Welcome to the first virtual event for HIPS, Houston Indie Podcast Society. We are very excited to have this happening right now. We did try to start HIPS in early of this year, and just obviously the pandemic hit, and there's nothing you can really do about that. So now we have turned it into a virtual event for now, and I'm pretty excited about it. How about you guys?
Totally, man.
I'm excited. I don't even live in Houston, but this is Ming. I'm up in New Jersey right now, but I mean, Houston's basically my adopted city. I get out there as much as I can, and I want to thank you guys for always welcoming a wayward, New Jerseyan East Coaster to your fine town, your fair city, and your podcast community for sure.
Well, Ming, you're always welcome here in Houston. We love having you here whenever you are.
I feel like I've eaten enough barbecue. I've drink enough Topo Chico, and I've eaten enough Whataburgers.
It's in your blood now.
It really is. If you cut me in half, I'll bleed, Big Red and Dr. Pepper slushies for sure, and Bucky and Beaver Nuggets for sure. So
there you go.
Beaver Nuggets is the way to go.
I could probably start a whole podcast on Buc-ee's and everything I've gotten there, and I could start a whole podcast on just the beef jerky. And I'm surprised, as far as I know, nobody has. But that might be up that might be up next. But
don't steal his idea, anybody. That's for me.
Yeah, but I miss you guys. I was last down there in November or December. I needed to use some mileage, and I decided to come down there. Got invited to a real Texas wedding, and of course I spent time over at Coral Sword, our beloved gaming cafe that I'm trying to actually turn into like a podcast mecca as well, our podcast gathering space. Brought a Zoom H6, brought microphones, and we actually ended up live streaming and podcasting out there. So because why not? and I just love that you guys have a huge community. I think Comic Palooza 2014 was like the first con I went to where they're like, oh, we podcast here as well. And I was like, who is crazy enough to start podcasting out here? And it was Cary, who was like, hey man, we have podcasts, we have Metal Geeks. There are other podcasters here. I think you guys had just like Lou Ferrigno was podcasting with you guys down there. And I was like, well, I remember Mike Zapsik from the co-star on Comic Con. I was like, dude, we need to get down here. Like maybe we should move down here, or at least come back every year. And that's what we started doing. So I love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too, man. It was a great year for podcasting, especially with Comic Palooza when it all sort of to start formulating. And I wanted to create something bigger. I wanted to support podcasting more. So we created the Comic Palooza podcast program, where we actually invite local shows each year to take part and help promote the show and just, promote their shows and just have fun podcasting at a convention.
Yeah, it really blew my mind because I didn't know you could mix the two, but then I was like, this makes perfect sense that, if you invite podcasters out, maybe give them a space, give them some passes, and they'll promote the show. But not only that, I was like, what a brilliant idea is all these podcasting geeks will be bringing recorders and mics with them, talking to the vendors, talking to maybe some of the celebrities, would give them a couple minutes, fellow fans, fellow geeks, cosplayers, and what great content for a podcast. So I get the question every time I go to a con, they're like, hey, I'm a podcaster. Can I roll by your table? Would you mind giving us a few minutes for a podcast? I'm like, listen, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to try to get content, good content. It's tough. It can be hard. I was like, any podcasters out there, bring your recorders, bring your gear. I will give you as much time as needed. And so and then one of the things I'll randomly pull up podcasts, and I was like, oh yeah, I recorded with that guy at Comic Con in 2016. Came to my table,
right?
We talked for like 20 minutes. Like, what a cool snapshot of that time that I had. That really great time I had at Comic Palooza.
I wanted to thank you just for being part of it and, helping the podcast community here, man. We took it to different levels. We have a lot of programming, and then we were able to start letting the shows actually do live podcast on the floor, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I think that first year, 2014, I think they kind of gave you some space along the wall.
Yep.
And you through your massive efforts created a whole section at the con, and I've been trying to tell other conventions I go to, like, you need to dedicate a space. There's, you have the celebrity roam, you have the vendors, you have artist alley. Why not podcast alley? Where's the podcast alley in your con? And I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at the history, I think Houston Comclusa probably started it. Years later, I went to a con in Omaha, OCon it's called, and they had a whole podcast alley, and it was cool. Some of the, they gave them booth space. I think 8 of them showed up, or 8 of them were invited, or and they're like, hey, we're gonna give you this booth space, go nuts with it. And some of them trucked in like leather couches and lamps.
Oh wow!
And I think one of them like trucked in like a rug and made it a whole environment. And it was easy for a guy like me. I was guesting there, but they knew I was a podcaster. But they tried to encourage all the celebrity guests, like, hey, go to Podcast Alley. Why don't you just go down the road and spend 5 minutes with each of these podcasters? And I was like, what a great thing. And I was like, man, maybe one day, you would get your, like a Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans going, hey, before I go to my signing, like, I got to hit Podcast Alley. It's a requirement. Like, I have to, like, I want to go down and talk about what I'm working on. Not only, maybe Avengers wise or whatever, or the big projects, but these guys always have independent projects that they're working on that need promotion, and they could go down and how cool would it be? It's like, oh man, yeah, I got Chris Evans on my podcast. Like, how cool would that be? Or Kevin.
It's not to say that it's not that the shows, the podcast, are smaller shows or anything like that, but they're not the huge celebrity-driven shows that are out there now that are interviews. So it's really cool for anybody to stop and just do a quick interview and help support. That's what it's all about, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and you started that though. Down there.
I'm really excited to see what Comic Palooza really has in store for us coming up in the future.
I have some ideas. It's going to be really good. When we come back, there is some really cool ideas percolating. So stay tuned.
Very cool. I do want to mention a few people. We do have a couple comments. We have Mark coming in saying, "What's up, guys? How's it going, Mark?"
Old friend of everything, basically.
Yeah, I've known him for years too, man.
Yep. We all know Mark. I know and hang out with Mark as well. We have Christopher. Christopher says, "Hey guys, how's it going, Christopher? Thanks for joining us."
Chris has tuned into pretty much every live stream we do here at a Shared Universe, our podcast studio up here in New Jersey, and
that's awesome.
And it paid off for him. We do toy unboxings, and we just give away the toys afterwards. And Chris has a pretty sweet John Wick action figure wherever he is right now. So.
Oh, well, Chris, I'm super jealous. We also have Erica. Erica says, "Hey guys." Hey Erica, how's it going? So I do want to talk about this. At the beginning, we are asking everybody to send us some questions. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. Instead of doing questions as we go, we're going to just hit everything at the end. So if you have some comments and questions that you want to hit us with, feel free, do it, and we'll get to them whenever we get through everything else. But first, let's go ahead and talk about who we are and who we are as presenters. I am Jared, obviously. You can see my name, but I have a couple podcasts. I started podcasting in 2016 with Hi Hungry, I'm Dad. Unfortunately, that one has kind of gone on hiatus. That one kind of stopped right around whenever the pandemic hit. Just the world kind of fell out from underneath us, and we kind of lost some motivation, just like everybody else did. But I do have some other projects, though. We have the Three Musketeers, which is a sibling podcast that I do with my sisters. It's obviously about Disney, and it's very family friendly. And we're doing some live streaming and stuff on our Facebook and YouTube as well. I have a new project that's just now in the works. Is called The Wardrobe Department. We're not doing anything just yet, but that one is going to be a movie podcast, and we're talking specifically about fashion and film, and that one's going to be really fun. I'm doing that with a friend of mine, Omar Lissandro. He is a fashion stylist here in Houston. He's pretty well known. He's dressed some celebrities and stuff, so it's going to be a really fun project to work on. I'm going to pass it over to whoever wants to take the reins, though, because that's pretty much all I have as of right now.
Cary, please take the floor. The floor is yours, my friend.
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Cary the Metal Geek, is as I'm known by. I have been podcasting for 15 years now. I started a heavy metal based podcast. I used to run a fanzine, and we were trying to find a new way to bring it to a new audience without just, creating an online, blog or something like that. And one of the very first podcasts I ever heard was actually a Disney World based podcast, which I'm a huge Disney nerd as well. I was like, why can't we do something like that for heavy metal, for metal scene, and talk about bands, play music, interview bands, and all that kind of stuff. And that's where it came from. We just celebrated our 15-year anniversary. And that's where Metal Geek sort of came out of there, because one of my co-hosts at one point, we started talking about Spider-Man too much. So we're like, why don't we just branch out and do a secondary podcast where we are metalheads that, talk about heavy metal, but we talk about a lot of geeky stuff too. And that's where that came from.
That is, I love a good mashup, my friend.
Yeah. I think we've been doing that one almost 8 or 9 years. I remember meeting your boss, Kevin Smith, one time, and I gave him my card and we talked about it for a second. And I was like, yeah, he's like, how long have you been doing it? I was like, it was like 10 years at that point. And he's like, if only I can get there one day. I'm like, dude, if I can just have some of your followers, I'd be okay. I'll trade you.
Yeah. Not only did he get there, but he's kind of gone way, way, way beyond that. So,
yeah.
And then here I am with 4 years. So
it doesn't.
It all takes time, my friend.
Yeah, most definitely.
Doesn't matter when you start, as long as you start and you're having fun with it. So,
Exactly.
My name is Ming Chen. You might know me from the TV show Comic Book Men, and if you watch that show, in between scenes of us, bartering for vintage toys and comics, we kind of describe what just happened with Kevin Smith at a weird poker table with these microphones. And we are podcasting, and I always love that because I believe if you go back, look at the history, I believe we have to be the first TV show to depict podcasting in any format, and I'm kind of proud of that because you always want to be the first. So I think later on, you see podcasting in some other movies and TV shows, but I think I want to think that we were the first in 2010 or 2011, 2012. I started about 10 years ago, and I had no desire to do this. I had no desire to be behind a microphone. I had no desire to talk into a microphone. I had no desire to do any of this stuff. It was Kevin Smith that got us into this. He discovered it in 2007 with his podcast called Smodcast, which was perfect for a guy like him who wanted a format where he could say whatever he wanted, to go on as long as he wanted, and to control every aspect of the program. And if you know anything about Kevin, he loves to talk at length, and he doesn't like to shut up, which is very ironic for a guy who plays a character called Silent Bob in the movies. He's not silent at all in real life, but he found the perfect format for himself. And once he found out what it was and how to start and how to get online, it took off because he's a great storyteller, and he's Kevin Smith. Like, who doesn't want to hear Kevin Smith talk? Telling stories about Ben Affleck getting into trouble, or right. Jason Mewes getting into trouble, or just stories from the set, or just stories from interacting with the people, the many people he's worked with. But he was, 10 years ago, he was like, hey, I'm starting a network. I need other shows that aren't just me. It can't, I guess it could be Kevin Smith on Batman, Kevin Smith on this, Kevin Smith on this. I need other voices though. So he kind of went to the people that worked for him, or the people he was surrounded with. And he was like, hey, I want you to start a podcast. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I want you to start a show, like I'm doing. I'm like, you're famous already. You're a great storyteller. I'm the guy who puts your podcast on iTunes. I'm fine with that. I'm like Ned in Spider-Man. I'm the guy in the chair. I'm fine with that. I don't want to be out there web slinging like you are. I want to help you. I'll sit here and help you get online. He's like, no, you don't get it. This is awesome. I know you have a voice. Get out there, start a show. And I was like, I don't. On what? He's like, well, what do you like talking about? I'm like, I don't know. I love comic books. I love Star Wars, and I love food. And he was like, that's a podcast. I'm like, really? Who would listen to such a thing? He's like, people who love comic books, Star Wars, and food, or one or the other. It doesn't have to be all three. I'm like, really? People will listen to this? It's like, trust me, people will listen to this. So he gave us a huge push, and I got addicted to it immediately. And that's something I warn people who are about to start this. Like, you're gonna get addicted. You're gonna want to do this every week. Once you get that taste, it's like, wow, this is complete freedom. I can have a show. I can invite whoever I want. I have total control over every aspect. You're gonna want to keep doing this. So, and I know I got hooked. So, that comic book, food, and Star Wars podcast, that ended up being a podcast we do called I Sell Comics. We just recorded, I think, our 306th episode, and it keeps going. So, for anyone sitting there quarantined, thinking about doing this, just do it. And if you have any questions about how to get started, all that, that's what we're here for. So
that's right.
Most definitely.
You made two great points. It's addictive, and anyone can do it. If you have something you want to talk about, you should start a podcast.
Yeah.
Any topic has its audience.
That's right.
I think that's the biggest takeaway there.
Yeah, I just heard I found out there are a whole bunch of podcasts about dyeing yarn dyeing, yarn, like what you knit sweaters and stuff with. And I learned that yarn dyeing is a huge, like, multi-million-dollar business, and people have started podcasts about it. I was like, holy crap, that's cool.
I mean, there's podcasts about photography. You would think something as a visual medium would be not well suited for podcast form, but it definitely is.
I mean, there's podcasts about other podcasts, so I mean, we're getting meta now.
We're starting to get really meta at this point.
Yeah, that's right. So don't let anybody tell you no. You can do it. If you have something you want to talk about, if you find something, you have a niche that you like, and you don't hear any other shows doing it, do it yourself.
Yep, that means you'll have the whole audience to yourself.
Right.
I think we get that question all the time. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a podcast about this. Like, is this too obscure? Is this too niche? I'm like, no, like, the more niche and obscure it is, the better, because you'll be the one introducing it to everybody else. And
you'll find your real audience that way.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's pretty awesome.
And when you're searching for you on whatever, device, they're looking for a podcast, and they discover you, that you have something in common, they become your biggest fans.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Ming, one thing that I took away from that story about comic book men and being the first one to introduce podcasting into a TV show, what I really liked about it is it was done in a very well, like, thought out way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, it's supposed to be a gimmick. It was just you guys sitting down together at a table and just talking about what was going on, and it felt very genuine. So
yeah, and I think so if you watch, we were around a poker table, and I think a lot of people are like, why are you around a poker table? And that's how we started. Kevin has a comic book shop here in New Jersey, and a number of years ago he got really into the Texas Hold'em craze. So we bought poker tables and held after hours, like, backroom poker tournaments back there where he would play with fans. And so coincidentally, we had a poker table back there, and that's where we set up our first podcast setup, and found out that it worked perfectly, because you can fit about 10 people around there if you had to, at built-in cup holders, and and it was like the perfect height for podcasting. So we just translated that into real life, and it was fun. If you watch a traditional reality show, after they do like Pawn Stars, after they do a transaction, you'll see them, maybe they'll have a camera on the guy in the back of the store or in the parking lot going, hey, I was trying to get $1 million for this comic book, but it didn't work out. It was only worth $1,000, so I decided not to sell it. And we're like, that's boring, man. Like, single shot on a talking head, that's boring. Let's. And Kevin was like, how about we do it as a podcast? I'm like, that's not only was that brilliant, but it was true to life. So It was I always liked that part of the show.
And Kevin, actually, the first time I ever heard the term or somebody who was a podcaster was in one of his films in Tusk.
No, they're Justin Long and
Yeah,
Haley Joel Osment are they have a very successful podcast network where they were able to make a living off of it.
because life imitates art. Because now Justin Long has his own podcast.
Yeah, which is so crazy. But I think I always like that Kevin put that in. I was like, whoa, man, this is pretty cool.
I'm like, I felt with that character. I'm like, hey, it's me on screen. Finally.
Yeah, for sure. And you never know. I'm not saying that if you start a podcast, you'll wind up on a movie or you'll wind up with a TV show, but it could happen.
It doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt.
What are you saying?
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I think what it does is it gets you out there. The universe doesn't really know who you are until you put yourself out there. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast or you're thinking about starting a stream or something similar, YouTube channel, go ahead and do it. There's never a best time to start. It's always right now. Yeah, it's always right now.
I think now is probably the best time. It's during this whole pandemic, this has really kept me sane for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Even being able to see, friends or other people, even on a computer screen, has really, like, I don't know what I would have done without this, to be honest.
I haven't actually physically done a podcast with my co-host in a room. It's all been virtual, and it's been great because no offense to my wife or anything, but it's great to see and hear other people,
Most definitely.
Yeah. So I actually have a physical podcast studio here. We help people launch podcasts. We teach classes here, and then once they've got the basics, the goal is to have them come back every week and record their episodes here. And when the quarantine hit, and the governor was like, "Hey, you can't gather anymore. Like everything's got to be shut down. You're not." I tried to argue that this was an essential business, but it fell in backwards. And I remember, the day they shut everything down, I panicked for a little bit. I was like, well, that just killed our whole business model. Mm-hmm. Now what? And I was like, wait a minute. We've gotten people on Zoom before. Like, what if we moved everybody on like a streaming platform or like a Zoom, and we just kept them going? I really didn't want people to stop, as I know. Well, yeah, I knew that they didn't want to stop, and I was like, all right, we could figure this out. And we moved everyone, to this platform. StreamYard that we're using has been a huge thing. My main concern was, can you bust balls across a computer screen?
Most definitely.
We learned within like
apparently you can.
That it worked out pretty well. I was like, okay, we're going to be good. We'll be fine. So,
and it's so great.
Have that element.
It's so great, Ming, that you created this business of podcasting where people can come to and have a comfortable place and learn about it. It's taken it to the next level, which hopefully more locations will open up and all that kind of stuff.
I'm working on it. And I know like Houston would definitely be a fun place to do it.
We need that satellite location here for sure.
Yeah. And I know a couple of similar places that have actually opened up down there. And I'd love to see them for sure. And I've met other podcasters with like really cool setups as well. So you guys are doing great things down there. I'm a little jealous because I want to be, I want to physically be with you guys.
Well, you will be at some point. Let's go ahead and skip over to what is HIPS. Obviously, HIPS is Houston Indie Podcast Society, but it's not just for Houston. What we kind of want this to be is for surrounding areas and just all of Texas as well. And even beyond that. But primarily, I think Houston is the focus. But just because you're not in Houston doesn't mean you can't be a part of the community. HIPS is something that we started, like I said earlier in the broadcast, it was meant to be a live podcasting event where we have 2 different podcasts come in, do their episodes at a venue, get some audience members in there, and just help people connect, whether it be podcaster to podcaster or audience to podcaster. It didn't really matter. We just wanted to build the community here in Houston because we are the 4th largest city, and it doesn't make sense to have 2 different podcasts to not be a big podcast community in the city.
Yeah, which is amazing. I think I realized that quickly at Comic Palooza when I was like, well, there are other podcasters here, which was weird to me. Like up here in New Jersey, we didn't know. We were trying to find other people in our community, and we, I think there may be 2 other ones around here, like only 2 that we knew of. And yeah, when I got to Houston, I was like, well, this is yeah. Obviously, Houston's way bigger than where I am now, city wise. But it was cool to meet other. I was like, wow, they got a geek podcast, and this guy's got a geek metal podcast. Like, how that's how cool is that? And then there were podcasting panels at a convention. I'd never seen that before. Before I got down to Houston, and yeah, that made me really happy. And then at some of these podcasting panels, there were people curious about starting shows, or people that wanted encouragement, or people that had questions. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I was trying to figure out a way to just move down there and be with you guys.
That was one of the big things about the podcast program was education and programming and things like that, because it's great to share that information with everybody. And it was so cool for you guys, you and Mike, to actually come and be involved. Or that first one we did, it was amazing.
That one was insane. I was like, hey, Mike, they want us on the podcasting panel. He's like, really? He was like, there's a panel on podcasting? I was like, and I like, we've been going for a while. Let's yeah, we got to go to this. And we showed up, and the panel was, I think, 12 or 13 people,
yeah,
and you had made enough space, and there were enough microphones for all of us, and a bunch of people showed up. I was like, whoa, this is like it's like Chewy, we're home. I mean, that's basically what it was. And I remember yeah, I was like, wow, these guys are podcasters. They know whether they've been doing it. Like these guys are like us, but they're they've got accents, but other than and they eat a lot of meat, but other than that, they're awesome. Like,
no, wait a minute, we have accents?
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And this is way back in, I think, 2014. So this is very early on, even kind of in the life of everything. It was it's pretty amazing. So I'm glad you're trying to band everybody together.
Yeah, that's what it should be. It should all be one group of people just podcasting. It's everybody should be supporting each other and lifting everybody up, and just making it one big, brotherhood type of thing.
Right. It's not a competition at this point,
Nope.
Right? It's we're all striving to find our own audience, and there is plenty of audience to go around. You just have to find your niche. You have to understand like who your audience is. But beyond that, I mean, everybody can find their audience, right? So I'm really excited about Comic Palooza and what you guys are doing, because there is a educational aspect to it, and that is very important to those who don't know the ins and outs of anything. So they know that they have the idea, they know that they have the cast, but they don't know how to go in and edit. They don't know how to set up their microphones properly, or even speak into the microphones properly sometimes. And
well, I mean, every year we do.
Go ahead.
Every year we do podcasting 101, and we do 102 and then like other versions. But that first podcasting session, people ask me, well, how come you're still doing that? That 101 class, because there's always people interested to learn how to do a podcast. What equipment do I need? How do I do it? How do I get online? All these kind of questions are out there, and everybody that does podcasting does a little bit differently too. So it's great to have all those different experience and ideas mixed into it as well.
Yeah. And some people are more keen on keeping up with the technology that's coming out. Some people don't necessarily pay attention to it. So there might be some piece of equipment that somebody knows about that one person doesn't, and they find out, oh, this is perfect for exactly what I want to do. Ming, you use a lot of Zoom products, right?
I do, so much so that they I guess about a year ago, they're like, hey man, we want to come over and do a photo shoot with you at your studio and anywhere else you can think of. When they came out with the L8, the LiveTrack L8 mixing board, it was a board specifically made for podcasting, and I mean they've supported us for years, but this is the first time I was like, hey, we want to get you involved in a campaign. I'm like, absolutely, like no no hesitation. And they sent me one of their boards. I was like, wow, they really gave a lot of thought into this. So I highly endorse their products for sure. And
The L8 is great.
yeah,
I had the L12, which was the predecessor before it had all the onboard cues and stuff like that, and they minimized the channel size on it. But the L12 was a little bit more for live recording instruments.
yeah, music, great for music, great
Yeah.
for studio environment, great for podcasting as well. But it may be more than you need for most purposes.
Yeah. That's why the L8, whenever it came out, I was like, man, I need to get one of those. But I ended up going with the Rodecaster Pro, and the Rodecaster Pro has actually been a godsend.
Yeah,
So
great. Also,
but
great.
I'm also a huge Zoom fan. I have
Me too.
my H4n. I had the L12, which I was very excited about. So
I have an
the
H6 that I
H8
love to use. I know you got the H8, didn't you, Ming?
I did, yeah. They came out with the H8, which has more inputs, touchscreen interface. There's a specific podcasting interface for it. It's a pretty cool piece of equipment. If you look at Zoom, yeah, they're really focusing a lot of their product line on podcasting now. I think they've seen they just see that there's a need for it, and they want to make the ultimate podcasting gear for podcasters. So I know which I appreciate that. And we're all geeks here, so I was like, oh man,
That's right.
hang out. Like, when's it coming out? When can I get my hands on this? When can I check it out? Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I'm pretty jealous because I've been wanting to get my hands on an H8 for a while because it just the look of it looks so awesome. And then on top of it, all of the interaction that you can have within that one small portable piece of equipment. It's great. Let's go ahead and move on to online events. What we're planning on doing is something very similar to what we have right now. It's going to be obviously an online broadcast on our Facebook page and on YouTube, but we're going to invite some podcasters on and talk about podcasting, kind of promote what they're doing, but also kind of talk about how we can all learn from each other. So are there any techniques that they're using? Is there any way that they're marketing specifically for their podcast that might help out others? So it's kind of like an entertainment aspect, but it's also a little bit educational.
Edutainment.
Yeah, there you go. Edutainment. That's the perfect word for it. Thanks.
That's a Disney word. I couldn't coin that.
Yeah.
Oh man, do you have to pay to use that word now? Are you gonna get a bill in the mail?
I hope not.
Or
I might be watching.
I hope not.
Or a lawyer in a black suit showing up at your door. Either or.
Yeah, there might be at some point. You never know. But yeah, we're gonna have a lineup, and we're gonna just bring people on. And if there's anybody specifically who wants to come on, feel free. You can get in touch with us. I'll go ahead and bring this up. Here is our social media. You can find us at hipshtx, or you can email us at the same hipshtx@gmail.com. And we want to get a good rotation of people coming in, and you don't have to have very much experience. Literally, you can have one episode under your belt, or even people who want to start podcasting.
Sure.
We can go down that route and talk about, the pains of trying to start a podcast and finding the right form and finding the right hosts. So there's a lot of stuff that we want to do with this, and I think it's hopefully going to help out a lot of people while we entertain at the same time. So some of the future events, like I talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, this whole community was ideally thought to be a live thing, right? So we were supposed to have live events at venues. Being with the partnership at Coral Sword, we were supposed to go in and have Coral Sword as the official hangout of Hips, which it still is, but we can't really go out as of right now. So, but I mean, they do have an outside area that we could still go to. They still have the picnic tables set up.
Yep.
And so it's something that we can do. But really, we want to get together and play some games. whenever we're at Coral Sword.
Yeah.
So it's more fun and kind of building relationships. But whenever we go to a certain venue, and we don't have a venue picked out as of right now, that's why I keep saying venue. Whenever we go to said venue, then it would be 2 podcasts having a live show and kind of meet and mingle and get to know each other and just have a good time.
That's amazing. Yeah, I imagine. Well, I mean, and soon when this is all over, we'll be able to gather without fear of getting sick or dying, and and we can do what we do best, and hang out with each other. But yeah, you mentioned Coral Sword. We've we've got room back there. I've podcasted there. Plenty of outlets, like everything a podcaster would need. Wi-Fi. We got a pretty cool streaming booth back there, which could definitely be used as well. But I think I think that was something I thought I could bring to the table over there. We've got a hell of a tabletop and gaming setup. I got some video games over there. We've got beer and coffee, which, as you know, helps people talk. So also good for podcasting. But I thought it'd be a really great gathering space as well. And I can't wait until we can safely gather there and have hips meetups over there for sure. And
it's a very cool location. And the gaming aspect, I mean, people hang out and drink and eat food and game, and it's very cool.
Yeah. And
I've spent many a nights there and drank many a drinks.
Yeah, you got plenty of table space there to set up I've done it. I've set up microphones. So I've brought portable recorders and recorded podcasts there. So yeah, I've always envisioned that as a gathering place for podcasters for sure.
Yeah, the podcast booth is very cool. It's a small little intimate space where you have your Twitch set up. You have multiple cameras. So it's a great space to go once the pandemic is over, obviously. But if you're looking to get into like a live stream or a Twitch or just a place to record a podcast, it's a great place to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're very lucky to have Coral Sword as a partner with us for this thing that we're doing for Hips. I'm really excited. I spend a lot of time over there whenever I can. Obviously with the pandemic, I haven't been able to go, but I really need to get over there and check out the picnic tables that they set up.
Yeah, the Sandy, the manager, he loves building things. So he took some of the parking spaces out front, built an outdoor area. He did it in like one day. Like he's insane. But he's also a big geek as well. So he understands. He gets us for sure. He gets all of this, and I would love it if he started he could probably start a podcast just based on his adventures in coffee even, but he's a very, very adventurous dude. That guy lives. So and he loves to kind of spread the love to everybody else. And have
you talked about him? Have you talked about it with him? About starting
here and there, yeah. I think I haven't gone too in depth. He's had other things to worry about right now. I think we've kind of stabilized though, as far as, but still, we don't know how long this is going to go on, and I'm just looking forward to that one day where it's safe for everybody to just come out, and we can set a date and it's like, hey, all podcasters come out on this date. There's a Hips meetup at Coral Sword. I will fly out for that. I will hang out. And I really want to meet everybody who's had the passion to hop behind a microphone and start podcasting.
That'd be great. I look forward to that day, in all honesty.
Do you know if
they're doing... Yeah, I hope so. Do you know if they're doing any kind of games on the outside?
I think I'm trying to figure out. I think in a limited capacity. I think, but yeah, it's tough with people touching pieces and it's just I think it depends on the game and how, but I think the other thing is they don't want people taking the tables up for too long. They got to keep that rotating. Yeah. It's a limited space. So, and there is you can do stuff inside as well, but with a couple caveats as well. So it it's while it's still open and welcoming, it's not it's not ideal yet, and I'm hoping that soon we can do everything without worry soon.
Yeah, I think the one big takeaway though is they are open. Go and support them because
sure.
it's a great place and it's
room for outdoor,
it's a fun atmosphere.
outdoor capacity, but it is open. 1318 Telephone Road, everybody. If
there you go
by there, that'd be amazing.
Okay, so this one we kind of talked about already. Who is HIPS for? Obviously, it's for anybody who is a podcaster, anybody who loves podcasting, anybody who is interested in starting a podcast or just loves listening to a podcast. This community is for you. And again, I want to specify this isn't, even though it's Houston Indie Podcast Society, that doesn't mean that it's just for people in Houston. Obviously, we have Ming. Ming is not in Houston, even though a part of him does reside here, right?
Yep, big part. I left big part there.
So we want to reach out to surrounding areas, like San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, even going wider and farther, and even reaching out into the Beaumont, Port Arthur area, into Louisiana, into Oklahoma, just surrounding areas. And we want this to grow as much as possible. And we want to have everybody here.
That's awesome. I think that kind of just pretty much keeps in the spirit that I've always felt since that fateful day in May 2014 when I first stepped into Houston. It's always been very welcoming, and I love that you guys welcome something I'm very passionate about as well. So, and I love that extends to everybody else, no matter where you're from. If you're a podcaster,
right.
Just these guys just happen to be in Houston, but that doesn't mean you have to be.
Yeah. So one of the things, I have a friend of mine who is very near and dear to my heart, Stacy, and she is a player that we had on my D&D podcast, The Mundane and the Arcane. And I would not have ever met her if it wasn't for podcasting. So I had a friend of mine who was going to do the podcast with me, Nathan Key. He knew Stacy because of another podcast called Trends Like These. And he kind of asked her, hey, are you interested in D&D? If so, do you want to do this podcast with us? And she said, absolutely. And she ended up coming down to Comic Palooza with us last year. And we did a panel with Passion Nerdly, and we did our own panel for The Mundane and the Arcane. And it was a great way to collaborate with another great podcast. Roxanne and John, they are great people, and we absolutely loved being a part of that collaboration. And we were really looking forward to having another collaboration at Comic Palooza that unfortunately got canceled. But I'm sure that we will have more collaborations with them going forward as well.
Every time you say collaboration, I think of Vanilla Ice.
Well, stop and collaborate and listen.
I'll listen.
He was right, like a pound of bacon. So yes.
One of the things I was going to say is most of my best friends I've met in the people that I podcast with. So it's very cool, and you don't know who you're going to meet, in what kind of relationship you're going to have with these people when you start podcasting with people.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, getting behind a mic, for some reason, it just builds this relationship that you don't build in any other way. So you learn how to communicate with each other. You learn everybody's nuances and how they speak, their mannerisms, and you really connect on a deeper level, I think. So that's really cool. Something very interesting about podcasting that I didn't really realize until I actually started. So
yeah, who knew? Like I said, I had no desire to do this before Kevin made me do it. Once I did it, I was like, I don't know if it's the microphone. I've seen it. I've seen something about being behind the microphone, opens people up. And, especially if they're talking about something they really love just something they really love, something they love to watch, something they love to read, whatever they love to do. It really opens people up. And I love that. I think it's so cool.
It's nice to have that venue to be passionate about something, and people are going to actually care about what you say. Yeah,
most definitely. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you guys specifically want to talk about?
I miss you guys. I just want to see you guys, in person. I mean, the ultimate way of doing this is that, and like you said, in-person events, like seeing people face to face. But since we can, we are very lucky to have this kind of technology where we can keep going. And I think that says something about the podcasting community, though, where we're like, okay, we're not allowed, health wise, we don't want to get each other sick, so we can't do it in person. But if there's anything I've learned by reading comic books or watching Marvel movies, you find a way to keep going. And I love that spirit between people like us or most podcasters have decided to move either online or just find a way to keep going. And I love that. And I think that says a lot.
And I think services like StreamYard and Zoom and things like that have really taken it to the next level since the pandemic started. Not just to support podcasting, but for people that are having to do business this way and all that kind of stuff. It's really technology is really advanced in just a few short months, and we all benefit from it.
Yeah, we are using StreamYard as of right now, and it is a very good product. Ming, you use it as well for pretty much everything with a shared universe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When the pandemic hit, when we weren't allowed to do it in person, we moved everybody onto this platform, and it's very easy to use, very easy to invite guests. I've had everyone from 4 years old to people don't traditionally live stream or use any kind of live streaming technology hop on and they were able to continue their shows, and I appreciate that. And then some of the people who were coming in person, they're like, you know what, I'm just going to do it online today. I don't usually it's I don't feel like driving 40 minutes today to come down to the studio, but I want to keep going, and I'll do it online with you. And it's really, and a lot of them have decided maybe they were once every other week they would do it, or maybe once a month, and they're like, I'm going to go weekly. I can do that now. And I love that. I think that flexibility and the kind of seamless technology that exists, I think it's great.
It's definitely some good technology. So I want to go ahead and post up our social media and our email again, just for everybody. Please go and follow us on HIPS HTX on all social media platforms. And then if you want to email us, just reach out to us, hipshtx@gmail.com. This is where we're going to find people and bring them onto the show specifically. And we want to talk about, again, podcasting in the Houston area, first off, but also branching out into other areas. So if you're not in Houston, please feel free to reach out to us anyway, and we can still have a conversation with you and see if we can't get you on and talk about what you're doing on your projects and how we can help or how others can help. You can obviously reach out to the community and ask specific questions. I think that is going to pretty much bring us into the Q&A that we have.
Awesome.
So
everybody.
we do have a few comments here and there. Let me scroll through and find the questions. Cary, I missed one from your wife. Kim says, "What's up, Cary?"
Not much. What's up with you?
And then she says, "Keep it geeky" as well. Erica chimed in with, "What equipment did you start your shows with? What is easy?" I started with 2 Audio-Technica AT 2020s and a small little 2-channel soundboard. So it was really cheap and easy, and it was effective. And I'm still using the Audio-Technica 2020.
I'm embarrassed to say about mine. I had no idea. We had no idea what we were doing 15 years ago. We had separate laptops, and we would record into Audacity, and I would mix it together later. I've actually somehow I want to give a shout out to Libsyn, because I that's not the company I use anymore, but they were generous enough recently to open up my account for free so I could download my old RSS feed of like the first 140 episodes. Yeah, it's
They
amazing.
still had it.
Yeah, they still had it all. They just all
Yeah.
they did is turn on. I downloaded everything to an RSS feed to my new one, and everything worked perfectly. Except those first episodes are very cringe-worthy. They didn't sound
They
great.
typically are.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, but everybody gets into that flow. Just keep on doing it. Don't get discouraged. If you're having fun, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I love that you found a way. Is that back in 2005 when you started, there were no they didn't have podcast specific gear. I think all the audio gear was made for music.
I think we actually we probably used like one of the Xbox mics that you got when you were online. Yeah.
Yeah,
We definitely got better.
yeah. I think my first experience with gear was when Kevin started. He had a little voice recorder. I think it had 2 XLR inputs, so he was able to plug in mics. The funny part was it took they didn't have SD cards back then. They were the big compact flash cards.
Yeah.
And I think it was very small. So I was wondering why all his first like 50 episodes they all ended at about 58 minutes. I'm like, "Hey man, why are you limiting yourself to 58 minutes?" He's like, "Well, that's all the card holds." I'm like, "Well, why don't you just get a bigger card?" He was like, "You can do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can upgrade. They make bigger cards. You could swap it out." So in a way it worked out for them though, because he knew he had to keep it within that limit and he had to get
Sure.
to the point, and he couldn't ramble on too long, which he tends to do. But it actually worked out for the early episodes of his podcast that they had that limit, and they were able to keep it somewhat consumable, and I think that kind of helped in the building their audience. So
what year did he start? He was like 2007, 2000.
2007 was when he first recorded his first episode of Smodcast. So yeah, I think later on when we started, he started on the West Coast. We had to buy East Coast gear for him when he traveled here and he wanted to podcast. So yeah, we had a little, like 4-channel Behringer mixing board. It was like, I don't know, like $100 or something. That we got a Guitar Center. We got a couple cheap condenser mics that eventually we upgraded to these. These are the Shure 55 SH Elvis mics, which we've been using ever since. We love the look. We love the sound. Just kind of the combination of everything has really worked out for us. So
yeah, I'm a Shure guy. I use a Shure SM58 for mine, which are they're great.
Yeah, good enough for Paul McCartney and pretty much every other rock star. Good enough for us. But I tell people if you're if you haven't started and you're like, oh, I don't want to buy all that gear, whip out your phone, your iPhone, or use the voice recorder on here, and they pick up surprisingly well. Kind of if you're recording with someone else, get close to it, but it actually picks up pretty well. Even at conventions when I don't have gear on me,
yeah.
Oh my God, there's I think we did an interview with Jackie Earl Haley one year at Palooza.
I remember that.
I mean, it was a real surprise. They're like, "Hey, Jackie Earl Haley has an indie film coming out. Do you want to record a podcast with them?" I was like, "Holy crap, yes!" But I don't have any gear. I was like, we'll do it on the phone then. And it sounded really good. So, in a pinch, it works out really well.
Yeah, and now they're making microphones specifically for phones. So
yeah, they plug in to the port, and get really good audio. So, yeah, you don't need to break the bank when you start out initially. If you decide you really love this and you want to upgrade the gear, you can.
Like you mentioned that Behringer mixer, $100. I mean, you don't have to go when you're starting out. Don't go crazy. Don't overspend and then get discouraged by that too. Just do what you can afford to start with, and then as you keep on going, you can start getting better equipment.
Yeah, or even better, if you know someone podcasting already, chances are they have an abundance of extra gear laying around that they will let you borrow for your first few episodes. I know I certainly do.
I do too.
We've upgraded so many times. Like, oh yeah, I have an old H4n laying around, Zoom H4n. You can totally borrow. I'll show you how to use it. A couple mics you can borrow. Like we want to give you this stuff. You can start.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things. I think podcasters are very open and receptive to helping other podcasters. So,
and Erica here, though, asked a question. She's a podcaster as well. So
cool.
Yes. One thing that I did want to touch on, you talked about Libsyn. I actually started on SoundCloud and transferred over to Libsyn whenever SoundCloud was supposedly supposed to be going away, and then Chance the Rapper came in and donated a lot of money and kind of saved it. But I had already moved over to Libsyn, and they made the process of switching over so easy. So Libsyn is who I use still to this day, and I will probably always use them. There are definitely some others out there. Just to mention a few: Blueberry, there's Podbean, there's Anchor.
I personally use Podbean now because I'm sort of grandfathered into a great deal.
Nice.
So I don't want to lose that.
Don't lose the grandfather deal ever.
No.
So how was your experience with Podbean for, I guess, those who might not have heard of Podbean before or really used it before?
They've been really great. They're very responsive. If you have a question, they're very helpful. It's really easy to get your show up on all other platforms. So all you got to do, and they keep on updating all the time. So you get more analytics, you get more metrics, all this kind of stuff. But really simple now, like, hey, I need to get my show on Amazon Music, and there you can go through your account and just fill out the form, put the right information in, and take care of it for you. So
that's always very helpful. Libsyn does the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to another question. This one came from Matt Ramirez on YouTube. What's a good number for a first episode download-wise?
What's up, Matt? I personally don't look at numbers at all. I look more at feedback and responses that I get from people. That's my metric. If people are enjoying it, that's all I really care about. I don't really look at the numbers. If one person downloads it for your first episode, that's great.
Yeah,
at least somebody's listening.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. One download is not. I mean, it's a start. It's where you start from. You always need that first download.
So. One more than you had, the day before you started. So
that's right.
But yeah, there's that magic word, engagement. If people are engaging. Mm-hmm. Oh man, you talked about the Lost Boys. I love the Lost Boys. That's pretty awesome. Real quick, when I saw Kevin Smith's first movie, Clerks, trying to get all my friends to watch it, and they're like, "That's a black and white movie. That's an art." They're like, "Is this some kind of art movie?" Like, I'm not gonna watch that. And I'm like, well, it's not really an art movie. They're, unless you like swearing and guys from New Jersey. But it wasn't until it took me a while to find other fans of it, and when I did, I was so happy. And it's kind of the same thing with podcasting. Is that if you find someone that listens to it and they genuinely listen to it and they send you feedback, or they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you talked about this. Like, I love this. I didn't think anybody else liked what you talked about on that episode." That's the ultimate feeling, I think. That being said, if you record an episode, your friends and family better be listening. Otherwise, you can just start cutting them out of wills or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that should garner you at least more than one listen. But with any luck, your friends and family will tell all their friends and family, and it will spread like wildfire from there.
I think that's a very good point, because one thing that you have to consider, because I know that some people can kind of get discouraged whenever they see people posting on social media that, oh, I've got like 3 episodes, but I have 1,000 listens per episode. And you have to consider, like, where are they getting their listens from? Yep. Or do they already have a platform that they've have a built-in audience?
Right.
So you have to kind of consider that. Don't get discouraged if you see yourself getting like 3, 4, 5 downloads per episode. Just keep plugging away, keep going, and your audience will grow. As long as you have your message, and you're going to find your audience. It's just a matter of getting out there.
Yep. And as long as you keep on doing it, don't stop it because you get discouraged, because the more you do it, the more people are going to find it.
Most definitely. So Matt does have a secondary question. Does not having a time limit help or hurt? You talked about Kevin having his time limit because of his card size. That seemed to kind of help him a little bit.
Yeah, I really think it did. And in general, people ask that all the time when they start here. It's like, hey, what should I keep my podcast to? And I was like, if you can keep it, around an hour, under an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, I think in this kind of Instagram society, Michael Bay like cut every like quick cuts and everything. That attention spans are very very hard to keep right now. Attention spans, and I think everyone's like, well, Joe Rogan goes for 3 hours. I was like, yeah, well, Joe Rogan is one, a very good interviewer, and two, he's got very good high profile guests that you don't want them to stop talking.
Right.
But if you don't have those interview skills and you have a guest that maybe nobody knows about initially, keep it consumable. I think they measured and said, most podcast listeners listen on their commutes. I think statistically, and the average commute is about half an hour. So if you have a 1 hour episode, people will listen to it on their way to work and they'll finish it on their way back. And they'll get that. They'll be able to consume that whole episode from beginning to end and want more. They'll want that next episode you put out next week. So also when you post an episode, it will list how long that episode is. And if it's like 2.5 hours, they're like, oh man, that's a lot to get into. Maybe I'll save this one for a long flight. I have 3 months down the road, and they won't listen to it right away. So brevity is not a bad thing. But that being said, this format, there are no limits. You can go as long as you want. You want to record a 5-hour podcast, you can. If you want to record a 5-minute podcast, you can. That's completely up to you.
My metal show tends to go longer because we do play music in it.
Yep.
But I mean, I think we just put out a 4-hour episode.
That's awesome.
But that's a pretty rare thing to do, though.
I think it really depends.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think it really just depends because whatever your show is about kind of tells you how long it should be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about like a deep dive into true crime, then you could either talk about one thing for multiple hours or split it up to multiple episodes.
Yeah.
But you do have to pay attention that people are going to lose their attention span at some point. So
very true.
A good commute time, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour is usually kind of the standard that people say that you should, at least whenever you're starting out, try to go for.
Yeah. Little focus doesn't hurt for sure.
Yeah. And it also just keeps you concise and, keep your audience's attention.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Unless
Matt.
you just are like an extremely good storyteller and can go for hours on end.
That's tough to find. And there's a reason those extremely good storytellers like Kevin or Joe Rogan or Matt Marin are where they are now because they have that talent.
Yeah. Joe Rogan is just one of the best interviewers in the podcast form right now. So
now that we're talking about that, do you guys listen to celebrity podcasts, like celebrities interviewing other celebrities?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think one that Rosenbaum, Michael Rosenbaum's, he's got one called Inside of You. If he played Lex Luthor on Smallville, right. But just a guy who doesn't, he'll ask anything, and he no hold barred, and just a really great interview. And I love hearing these behind the scenes stories from people now that they're not, a lot of them, there are no restrictions. So if a lot of them are talking about stuff that they worked on years ago, so they don't have to worry about losing a job or anything. So they'll tell these crazy stories that maybe they've only told to a select few people out into a wide audience. Like you really get an in-depth look at what was going on while they're maybe working on your favorite show or movie. And that I love that. I think that's the greatest thing.
It's one of the things I love about Metal Geek. Sometimes when I get people that are in bands that come on the show, I tend not to ask them all the typical PR questions about their new album. I ask them who's your favorite Star Wars character and things like that. And I've become friends with some of these guys that way, and they just open up, and it's so cool. I listen to Dax Shepard. I like his podcast. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Smartless yet, which is Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and Sean Hayes. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
I listened to a few of them, I guess. my podcast listening has kind of dwindled as of recently, just because I'm picking up some audiobooks and listening to those while I'm working. But yeah, Joe Rogan I usually catch on YouTube. Bobby Lee, he's on YouTube as well, and
wow.
he's got his podcast, and it's pretty funny to listen to stories that come up from like behind the comic scene. Whenever I say comic, I mean stand up, obviously, with Bobby Lee. And then Bert Kreischer has his show with Tom Segura that is a pretty interesting listen. So yeah, I think we're all listening to podcasts that celebrities are doing. So
and circling back real quick, we talked about the numbers and following that stuff during this pandemic time. Don't spend a lot of time looking at that right now, because a lot of people are not have their normal habits of when they listen to podcasts of driving to work. I know I listen to less podcasts usually. I do it when I go on my morning walks and stuff like that, but I tend to like watch more, TV or something like that right now. So don't let that discourage you either.
yeah, I mean, some people are seeing a spike in their listens, some people aren't. So some people are seeing their downloads kind of slide a little bit, but again, like Cary said, don't get discouraged. Keep going, keep plugging away, and it's going to find its normal routine at some point again. Like one of mine, I mentioned Hi Hungry I'm Dad at the top of the broadcast, and we stopped in February. So right whenever the pandemic was really hitting hard. And then we looked a couple months ago, and it was like we had 3 times as many listens than what we were doing whenever we were actually recording and releasing episodes. So that kind of motivated us to go through and do like one final episode. So I still need to go and edit that one, and that one's probably going to get released either this week or next week sometime. So just in case if there's any Hi Hungry fans out there, just expect another episode coming out.
Very cool.
We do have another question from Matthew Ramirez. What is a good number? Oh, we already answered that one. He asked it on YouTube and on Facebook, apparently. This one's a good one. Christopher Hewitt. What's your favorite Spider-Man or Batman actor?
That is a great question. I love Tom Holland, former Comic Palooza alumni.
Yeah.
Everyone loved him here. I thought Tobey Maguire did a great job as Peter Parker as well. So I was way back in 2002, so kind of definitely contributed to kicking off a lot of the comic book universe. And Sam Raimi, like how can you not love Sam Raimi? So
that's right.
Spider-Man 3, maybe not the greatest movie, but I really like the first 2. But Batman, I'm a Keaton guy. I remember vividly that year, 1989. And I had my doubts. I was like, Mr. Mom is going to be Batman, and but he definitely pulled it off. So much so that many years later, right now they want him back, and he might be coming back. We might be seeing Keaton in a Batman costume again, and I think I
hope that's the case.
I think it'll happen. I think that's what the people want. That's what I want, and I think it's going to happen. And just do it before it's too late for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Cary.
On my Michael Keaton, man, that 1989 movie is so special to me. I remember waiting in line to watch it. But as far as a cartoon version, Will Arnett, totally. Lego Batman all the way.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland for me too. I think he does a perfect job of being Spider-Man and being that sort of geeky, nerdy kid that also has some kind of charisma around him too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Keaton, obviously, again, I was born in 82. I grew up with Keaton as Batman pretty much. So Keaton for me, although, there have been others that are pretty good. Dark Knight Rises is an amazing movie. I loved the movies that Christian Bale were in. Ming, I want to ask you about Affleck specifically.
Yes.
How did everybody up there feel about Ben Affleck being Batman.
I think for the most part, I thought he was a great Batman. I thought he played a really the key to a good Batman is you got to be a great Bruce Wayne.
I was about to say he's a great Bruce Wayne, actually.
Can you play kind of like a dark, angry, rich guy? Maybe maybe with a touch of arrogance. And some people were like, is he even acting? But like, I joke. I actually worked for Ben for a year, many years ago, and he's a great guy. But I think if it was back then, and like I worked from like the year 2000, 2001. He was just coming off Good Will Hunting. I was like, no, it wouldn't have worked back then. But now that he's older, a little more grizzled, seem kind of been beaten up by life a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I was like, all right. And I thought he was great. And it looks like we'll be seeing a little bit more of him in this Justice League Snyder cut. And there's a reason we're gonna see him. I thought he was good. Love him or hate him, I thought he did a great job.
He was a great Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I really thought so.
And I guess for me, Tom Holland would probably have to be my favorite Spider-Man. I mean, he does such a great job. And I mean, Tobey Maguire, again, like you said, he's kind of started it off in a perfect way and showed that we can have these superhero movies and comic book movies, and they are going to be successful. Yeah, and
they'll appeal to everybody, which I think is.
So the takeaway is no Andrew Garfield love.
Too pretty. I never thought Parker was kind of skinny, geeky guy that got beat down in high school. Like I could relate to that. Andrew Garfield looks like a male model. I'm like, I can't. Bad for him. I'm like, yeah, come on. So
let's see. I'm going through seeing if we have any other questions. I don't. Let's see. Chris just came in with another one. What did you think of Mark Hamill going from Luke Skywalker to voicing the Joker?
I mean, I don't think there's any argument that Mark Hamill is not only one of the greatest voice actors in of our time in history, but his Joker is awesome and creepy and almost perfect. And when you think of Jokers, like, all right, Heath Ledger, Nicholson, whatever, but you always have to but you got to add Mark Hamill's Joker voice in there as well.
I hear the Joker. Mark Hamill is the Joker to me now. When people try to emulate that, even now, they're trying to do Mark Hamill as the Joker.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Alan Tudyk as the Joker from Harley Quinn.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
great job.
Which I was surprised to find out that was Alan Tudyk.
And also as Clayface too.
Yes, he is, and he does a very good job with Clayface. That is probably one of my favorite characters, besides like Harley and Poison Ivy. Clayface is probably one of my favorite characters in that whole program.
Agreed.
To me, Mark Hamill is Joker more so than he is Luke Skywalker. I mean, look, I do love Star Wars, but there's just something about the Batman animated series that it just hits my childhood nostalgia in the right way. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with he's Joker to me first. We do have a few comments actually. If you want to go through those as well, we don't have any more questions. If you guys have another question, please feel free to comment and we will go over it. Let's see. Back up top. And let's see. So Kim, your wife, Cary, says hips don't lie. And we don't. I don't think we've lied through this whole podcast. Not once.
We're very honest.
Very
if nothing else.
Gia says the production looks and sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us. So Matthew chimed in. He says he appreciates that. Working on episode 7 now. That's awesome. I'm really happy that you have a good amount of episodes going. My question is for you guys. Did you start with the first episode and just release it? Or did you have a couple in hand that you could go ahead and release a couple at the same time?
Oh, I couldn't wait. Yeah, because I didn't even know if it was going to work. But that first episode, we had so much fun doing it. It was like we got to put it out. It's like, wait, we can put this out now? Yeah, just we have to put it up. see what people think about it. I saw no reason to wait or bank 5 episodes or anything. I wanted to see what the reaction was right away, and I mean, we just had so much fun doing it. I'm very impatient, anyways, which is why I think this format works out really well. You can record an episode, do a little quick editing, have it up like 10 minutes after you've recorded.
Right. And I think it's when you're talking about pop culture, topics and things like that, you want to have it, is out as soon as possible. You don't want to hold on to stuff,
Yeah, and I think that really depends, like you said, on kind of the topic that you're talking about.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're talking about history, that's something that you can bank some episodes or you're talking about conspiracy theories, or you're talking about whatever it may be.
But if you're reviewing the new Bill and Ted movie, you want to get that out as quick as possible,
Yeah, most definitely.
And because everybody's going to have it. Thank you, Matt, for the comment. I've known Matt for a long time, and invite me on the show, dude. Let's do it.
Yeah. So we do have a comment from Ozil. What's up, guys? What's up, Ozil?
What's up?
Yeah, Ozil, he is with Pod Houston. He is another guy here in the Houston area, and he's doing some great things for Houston as well, podcast wise, and not just podcast wise, but also YouTube wise. He has Vid Houston as well, and he has
a lot of educational stuff going out too. So
he does, yeah, most definitely. So Bill chimes in with Rob Lowe's new podcast is fun. I haven't listened to it yet. Have you guys?
I have not.
No, I haven't either. But if Rob Lowe's got a podcast, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm probably going to check that
as young
out.
as ever.
Bill also says Adam West.
Good Batman. Without Adam West Batman, we don't get the Batmans that we get now.
That's true.
But very camp. Definitely a important place in history for sure.
Most definitely. Chris asks, "What's your favorite Star Wars character?"
That's such a tough question. Now there are so many, and the obvious answer is Boba Fett or
right,
Mandalorian. But
taking that off the table, who's your favorite?
I might have to go with R2-D2. I think he spans most of the movies and saved everyone's hide several times, more than several times. And if he could talk like in a language we could all understand, the stories that we would hear.
That's right. I don't think R2-D2 would be afraid to speak his mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I think R2-D2's probably got a podcast recorder built into him. So if we needed to record an episode, it's like, hey, R2, come over here. We need like you in like hologram form or whatever. But yeah, he could do it.
I was very upset because at Comic Palooza, whenever High Hungry had our live episode that we were doing on the floor, R2 came across and he drove by our table. So I told R2, I was like, "Hey, R2, come hang out with us. Come listen to the podcast," and he just ran away. It was not great for my.
He wasn't ready for it yet.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. So maybe he was on his way to record his own podcast.
I would listen to a podcast with him and C-3PO. I really would.
That would be interesting, in all honesty.
Who's your favorite?
That's food for thought. My favorite, I mean, it's hard to not go with Chewbacca. Chewbacca, again, is, he's in pretty much everything. So he's a character that you have a lot of time with, and he's just one of those interesting characters, kind of like R2, where you don't understand him, but you do at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I would probably have to pick Chewie.
I'm going to go a little deep dive. I love Grand Admiral Thrawn, one of my favorite characters, and Ashoka.
Interesting. So why not one of the main characters, I guess?
It's not that well, Boba Fett would be my number one answer. But I don't know. I like Han Solo. I like Luke. I like all the original characters, but I've read so much and dived so deep in my nerd life, my geek life, into some of the other characters, and they stick out for me. And when they brought Thrawn into like the actual canon and in the Rebels and everything, I was happy.
Very nice. I think one of the funniest things that I can think of whenever I think of Star Wars is how Han Solo wanted his character to die so bad.
Yeah, he wanted out. Harrison Ford wanted out, and finally, and many years later, they're like, all right,
Finally got it.
we got you.
Yeah.
He wanted to get out in Return of the Jedi. He's like, kill me.
Yeah.
But I really like the biker scout too. I don't know why. I really like the way they're designed.
That I haven't really done any Star Wars cosplay, but if I were, I'd do a biker scout costume.
Very cool.
For sure.
We
Well,
could
let us
probably
know
get that
whenever
to
you do
happen.
that.
One day.
So Kim asks, how has your editing changed from when you started your podcasts?
Very differently. This is weird for me. I actually I record everything on Audacity, save it out as a WAV file, do a levelator on it, and then I do all my editing in Adobe Premiere, just because I'm so comfortable in it. And then I bring it back out and then save it as the MP3 from there. Which is, a lot of people look at me weird when I tell them that, but
No, not at all. I think movie editors or film, that just movie editors are, you need audio to go with your
that's right. I'm just
film.
comfortable doing it, so it just works.
Yeah, they're really great audio editors. I started out editing on Final Cut Pro. Just you can make exact cuts.
Yep.
You could scrub to the exact point you wanted to make an edit, and it was just easy moving. It was really easy moving clips around
And overlapping and everything you really want.
Yeah, for sure. But I've
Gotta put that crossfade in at the cuts.
That's right.
and it was kind of built for that. And I was like, you don't need video content. It was a great audio editor. I've since switched over to Adobe Audition, which has been amazing and godsend for noise reduction. It's got that same kind of non-linear editing system, which works out really well. Imports, exports very, very quickly. It's
and they work together very well too.
Yeah, and the integration is great too. If you are working on a film or short project, you integrate that with Audition as well. I've switched 100% over to Audition, and it's been great. If it looks daunting at first, so many great tutorials on YouTube that are very easy to follow.
Most definitely. I'm using Audition as well, and I've used Audition from the start, just because I've always had the CS6 programs. So I have Adobe Premiere as well. I went to school for communications and with a minor in film. So I've always been comfortable with Adobe Audition and Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro as well. I have a lot of experience with that too. But Audition is such a great program. I mean, I'm still learning some stuff from time to time that I didn't know about. Like, I think one of the biggest things that has helped me in my editing process is the match clip level, or match clip volume is what it's called.
Yep.
And that gets you really close to where you need to be in terms of volume for all your channels.
Like the levelator. Yeah, it's great.
Especially now when everybody's doing more virtual recordings.
Oh man, yeah, you can't.
Oh yeah.
All off you're gonna be all over the map for sure.
That's right.
So I guess what has changed from when you started? Because I know that whenever I started, I would sit down for like 6 hours and edit an hour-long episode, just because I'm so meticulously going in and cutting every little thing until I figured out you don't really have to do that.
My show is very conversational, so I don't cut out a lot of uhs and ums and that type of stuff, because it's just a natural conversational flow. So I know a lot of people are very meticulous about cutting every single one of those out. I do not do that.
Yeah, I think I've always lived under the philosophy, if you said it, if it happened, it happened, and I'm going to keep that in there. If you said something that's like, oh man, can you cut that out? I'm going to get in trouble. Like, I'm get fired for this. I'll begrudgingly, I'll cut that out. I was like, man, that was great, but okay, I get it.
I try not to cut anything out unless my co-host says something too bad. Yeah, I have to cut that out. But yeah, or people request it,
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think now, I just don't have a ton of time to go through and cut things out meticulously. And I think I learned in the end, like, most people don't even you hear it because you were there, but most people don't hear it. So,
and we're always our worst critics too.
Oh yeah, by far.
Most definitely. So John chimes in. Hey guys, how's it going, John?
Hey John,
what's up, man? I've known this guy for a long time. He's actually done artwork for me for a lot.
Oh, very cool. I guess that's kind of a good question. Like, who has done your artwork for you? Like, do you have somebody specifically, or do you kind of use Fiverr, or what do you use?
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Actually, my first love. I have a background in graphic design, which helps out not only for me but for our clients as well. So just it's quicker and easier, and easier to get into the specified Apple iTunes format sizes, which are always a pain in the butt. But I'm able to do it all myself. So, but I know a lot of people use Canva if if they want to do it themselves via an app. We've had a couple clients go the Fiverr route, very economical, for the most part, and whoever gets the job done. But I'm lucky enough to be like, I got this. So
yeah, you're lucky enough to have that skill.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of it, obviously, with running Photoshop and stuff like that, but I would not call myself a graphic designer in any sense. So
I do a lot of Photoshop, but I'm not a creator in that way. John here has done my MSRcast logo for many years, and then my other co-host on Metal Geeks, Dave, who's an amazing artist, he's helped out on the Metal Geeks logo. So, and I do all the other stuff together. I put all the graphics for each episode together and all that.
That's cool.
I have a question that sort of, so intros and outros for your shows. How important is that for you? And how do you put those together? Because for the shows that I have now, I actually use the same guy that Kevin uses on a lot of his stuff. He was at Comic Palooza one year. I'm like, hey, can you do my intros for me?
Good. He's great.
Yeah, phenomenal. So how important are the intro and outro to have that working for you?
I'm going to chime in here. I think it's pretty important for me specifically. I think it comes down to preference, person to person. But for me specifically, I think your intro, outro really sets the tone for your show. Like if you have some long, drawn out, epic intro, and then you're talking about like stand-up comics, it's going to be a little bit of a, I guess, it's going to miss the mark, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And
don't have an overly dramatic like Avengers theme when you're talking about stand-up comedy. But it's a good point. Don't have your intros too long either. You don't want people to like lose interest too quickly.
Yeah. Plus, with any luck, they're going to want to listen to all your episodes. You got that long, like 5-minute intro for each episode. Like, like, can you just get to the show? So
if you're going to put that stuff all like commercials for other things or whatever you do, put them at the end.
Yeah.
I guess I have a friend of mine that does all of my intro outros. His name is Stephen Nesbitt. We call him Nez. And he does really good work. He's done everything from Hi Hungry I'm Dad, Spook Squad. He's done the one for the Three Musketeers. So he's pretty much a go-to for me.
Very cool.
I guess one of the things, how do you guys feel about just like typical banter at the beginning of episodes?
I think we do that at the beginning of every episode. So either I'll bring up something I think banter, I think we got a whole TV show out of it. So
I hear listen to a lot of shows and they do that banter. They pretend like they're not even recording it, and then they just go into it.
Yeah. I think it depends on the show, in all honesty. If it's going to be a good conversational show, then I think you can keep the banter in there. It kind of gives you a sense of who the hosts are and their relationship. But at the same time, the really good people who do it, they use their banter as a segue, really. So my personal opinion is don't go in and talk about like the stresses of your week, because that's going to turn off some of your audience. If you're using banter, definitely use it as a segue instead of just like a let's get comfortable type thing.
And be funny, or think that you're funny.
If you think you're funny, you are funny.
Sure.
If only that were true.
Let's see. Chris has another question. What do you think of Masters of the Universe, He-Man, or Thundercats original?
Thundercats, I'm a huge fan of. Lino, Panthro, Chitaro. The Masters of the Universe, I've gone on record already as saying I'm not the biggest fan of, only because I couldn't, when I was a kid, I couldn't relate to a big muscle-bound dude from Eternia wearing fuzzy underwear with a green tiger. I just couldn't. But what was out at the same time was G.I. Joe, and I got way into G.I. Joe. I was like, well, these guys could exist in real life, like we were in the heart of the Cold War back then, so they were battling like a real threat. So I got way into G.I. Joe, and couldn't get into Masters of the Universe. And I now that I'm older, I'm a little more open. I may Kevin's actually working on the current version of the Masters.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch that. So that that might get me back in big time. But
I think growing up, I was a fan of all three, including G.I. Joe. But we had a dog, and we named her Snarf. So
okay,
that shows my fandom right there.
Say no more.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Masters of the Universe, I would probably pick Thundercats over Masters of the Universe. But yeah, Thundercats was a good nostalgic watch for me.
Have you guys gone back and watched any of these shows recently?
G.I. Joe, I have. I think all the episodes are on YouTube now. So I'll go back and
interesting
check them out. And some episodes hold up better than others. But some of them, just like I remember watching this as a 10-year-old in my friend's basement, and it brings back some really good memories.
I have a quick question for you guys. What about Dino Riders?
I remember.
Did you guys
that.
ever watch that?
Yeah.
That was the best, in my opinion. Give me either that or Transformers. Transformers was a big one too, especially the movie. The movie was great. And that was really one of the first times where you really find out like how much feelings you can have as a person.
Yeah.
So
spoiler alert, don't go too far into it. For a 30-year-old movie, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
John asks, any words on the new Dune?
I think it looks cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I have not watched the like every time it comes across, I'm doing something else, and then I'm like, no, I need to go watch the trailer, and I just never do. So I don't have any real opinions. Just
I need to revisit the first movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. People tell me that doesn't stand up today, but
I mean, what does really at this point? We've changed as a society so much. There's a lot that is out there that really doesn't hold up very well.
That's true. Speaking of movie that don't hold up, is there any movies either of you guys have not seen in your life that you're sort of embarrassed to say?
Oh, that's a good question.
I knocked one off my list like last weekend.
Which one?
I had never seen Jaws all the way through.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I know I've seen bits and pieces of it here and there, but just rewatching the whole movie from beginning to end was great.
That's amazing. That's a great one. That one definitely it holds up. There's still sharks in the water. There's still threats. They eat people. I have not seen one frame of any of the Godfather trilogy.
We are on the same page. I haven't either.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right? Yeah.
That's crazy. Those are such great movies.
And I love those style of movies too. I love Scorsese. One of my favorite movies of all time is Goodfellas. And I'm like, I know I would like it. I just haven't done it.
Yeah, it's a commitment, I think. Or I don't know why I haven't gotten to it, but I will.
What about you, Jared?
Oh man, I'm trying to think, and there's so many movies that I should be talking about right now, and I just can't think of any. I am a film nerd, so I've seen a lot of them, but one I just scratched off my list not long ago was Lady Snowblood. I finally watched that one. That one, for people who don't know, is it's a samurai movie that was a real heavy influence on Quentin Tarantino doing Kill Bill. So it's a very good watch.
Cool.
Man, what other ones though? There's so many that I could talk about right now that I can't think of. Oh, you know what? I'll say this. I haven't watched Venom.
You know,
and that's kind of exactly why I haven't watched Venom.
It's
Right.
not bad, but you know.
yeah, but it's no like Godfather or Jaws, dude. Like,
Yeah,
it's good.
no, I know. I'm really hoping for like a big Carnage movie, like an R-rated Spider-Man versus Carnage. That would be
Well, they introduced Carnage in the very end of it.
a Venom.
Yeah,
Oh, very cool. Okay, so
Woody
I guess
Harrelson.
interesting. All right,
Woody Harrelson could play basically anything. So
Yeah.
just about, yeah. I kind of that brings up this next question for you guys: Joker or Carnage?
Joker.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Carnage good
Okay.
character, but yeah, Joker's
What about a Joker Carnage combo?
that would, well, hopefully one day we're able to see that. But
Maybe they'll eventually make a Funko Pop of that.
That'd be interesting. I mean, they do pretty much everything else, so
I don't think they would combine different companies like that, but you know.
probably not. But I would want to see it. So I'm gonna pick Carnage. Carnage is one of my favorite villains, and it's tough. Really is tough because there have been so many great Jokers, and Joker is such a great character. But it just comes down to like the sadistic mindset of Cletus Cassidy, and I don't know. He just seems a little bit more villainous to me, and I don't know. I get a lot of heat for it sometimes. So
That's okay.
So we have Matthew says Tenet. Have you guys seen Tenet yet?
I've not had time to watch Tenet yet.
I have not
Me
gone
either.
back to a theater since the pandemic started. My co-host George actually went and saw Tenet at the drive-in movie, and he said it was not a great experience because it started raining and he had to put the wipers on. It was just
Wow.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to sort of wait. You know, I really want to see it, but because John David Washington is a phenomenal actor, but I have not gone to the theater yet. I'm not comfortable enough yet.
Yeah, me either. They do have it at IMAX here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Chris says Joker. So he's in agreement with you guys, which I don't blame him, honestly. So, but any other questions from Ming, you, or Cary? Any final questions?
I'm tapped out, man.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of stuff, man. I love that.
Yeah, we did.
Love talking about podcasting for sure.
Yeah, me too. So I really want to reach out to you guys again and say, follow us on Hips at Hips HTX on social media, and you can email us about getting onto the show. I'm going to start a list of people that want to be on the show and kind of reach out to you and talk about how we can go about doing that. And, if you just have regular questions about podcasting, also just reach out to us and let us know, and we can try to help guide you a little bit.
Yeah, we're here for you guys.
So
always.
I think that's going to do it for us in this broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we're going to see you all back again whenever we have our next one, which will be, we don't have an exact date yet, but it'll be a month. We're going to do monthly episodes at this point until
Very
you
cool.
guys say, hey, we want you to do every day. So, but all right, that's going to do it. Thank you so
All
much
right,
for
thank you,
joining
guys.
us.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.